Welcome, everyone, to Timeless Conversations. On this show, we interview people, characters, and very important figures throughout history, fiction, and the multiverse itself. Today, we will be talking about philosophy with the man who started it all. Please welcome Socrates! Since Socrates was born around the time 470 BCE, he isn't alive right now. And unlike most movies, we don't have time travel to go and visit him. But we can talk to him through time. You see, I'm using a special program here that will allow me to communicate to Socrates in his time period from my time period. It's kind of like sending a text message through time. So I'm going to ask him questions and send them to him, and then he'll be able to send his responses back to us. So without further ado, let's begin. Nice to meet you, Socrates. Welcome to my show. Let's introduce him, make him feel welcome.
Thank you. It's nice to meet you too. Do you think people have moral responsibilities that they cannot avoid because of their ability to know what is right and wrong? For example, if someone knows it is wrong to steal, do they have moral obligation to try not to? What if it would provide
Why is he asking me questions? I'm the interviewer. Hold on there, Socrates. I have questions for you. I'm interviewing you from the future.
Yes, of course. What are your questions? The future always fascinates me. What is it like?
Oh, it's great. Could be better. Of course. Just wait until he hears about the year 2020.
2020! We have a 2020!
Could you tell me more? The future is truly something that people in my day could not even conceive of.
Always thinking about the present and the past. Well, we've made many advancements in technology and science, and philosophy is still alive and thriving. There are always going to be things that we could improve on. The year 2020 is certainly a good example of that.
Do you feel that technology and science have made life better or worse for humans? Do you think the benefits are evenly spread across the population in terms of increased living standards? Can technology and science ever truly solve the problems that plague the societies that use it?
Maybe. Philosophy means the love of wisdom. I was taught that the definition of philosophy is the study of basic ideas, asking questions, and searching for answers to those questions. Would you agree with this as the definition of philosophy, or would you word it differently? I mean, he should know. He made it.
Yes, I would completely agree with that definition. I believe the love of wisdom means that the pursuit of knowledge through any means is worth respect and admiration. I believe that asking questions is always the first step in learning. Without questions, there can be no answers and therefore no search for truth. Do you agree?
Most certainly. Or certainly, because I can't spell. I certainly can't spell. What do you love most about wisdom? What value would you say it has?
Wisdom is the greatest thing that humans can have. It allows us to see the world for what it is and how we should live within it. It is the most complete picture.
So it's most complete and complete at the same time. Good to know. That's cool.
By having wisdom, you have the ability to live life to the fullest. It allows us to see the beauty and simplicity in even the most complex things, and live life full of wonder and gratitude for opportunities that we have been given. Wisdom gives us the ability to make most of time we have here and to appreciate the world around us. Do you agree?
I do. You are often described as the father of philosophy for your contributions and ideas which have inspired others and current philosophers today. What do you think of this statement? You think you are the father of philosophy?
As the founder of Western philosophy, I would have to say yes. I am the father of philosophy.
Socrates, you are the father.
However, I would never claim any sole ownership, as it is something that many other philosophers have contributed to and built upon since my time.
Uh-oh, philosophy, I think you're about to get disowned by your father.
You are not the father!
Still, I have played a pivotal role in its development, and I am very proud of my achievements. Do you think it's important to recognize the contributions of those that came before us? Are there any other ideas that you have been influenced by, whether ancient or modern?
So you aren't taking full credit for creating philosophy? Is that what you mean? Do you have a license for philosophy?
Yes, exactly. It is something that has been built upon by many people, both before and after my time. I can claim credit for starting it, but there are many other great minds that have built upon these foundations and deserve credit for their work as well. Do you feel that every philosophy needs to be built on principles of those who came before it, or that there are some entirely original ideas that should stand alone?
So who would you give credit to? What great minds would you give credit to for creating philosophy?
It would be impossible to list all of the philosophers that I admire, but some of the most important ones to me include Plato, Aristotle, the Stoics, especially Epictetus,
Oh, I wish my parents gave me that name.
the early Christian writers like Augustine, Thomas Aquinas, and also writers like Spinoza, Hobbes, Locke, and Descartes.
Hey, I know about Hobbes.
There are many other great minds that I have learned from, but those are the ones that stand out the most. Do you have any favorites? Do you ever go back and read the original sources?
I do know a few of these names. I learned them in my philosophy college course. They teach philosophy at colleges now. Or as I put in, philopshy. I should be taking some more English writing instead so I can get it right.
That's very cool. What did you learn about them? Are there any other ancient philosophers that you've studied or are more interested in modern philosophers? Do people in your time often study the ideas of ancient philosophers just for insight into how they view the world, or are their ideas still something that people try to apply and live by?
Everything you and the other philosophers made will always be remembered and passed on to us. We have been going over some of your words, analyzing them, understanding their meaning. I really enjoyed that course.
That's wonderful. Is there any particular philosopher idea that you studied especially resonates with you?
I've been studying you a lot. You're an inspiration. Everyone thinks of you when they talk about philosophy. Or as I say, philosopher.
Thank you for your kind words. I am very flattered.
I've got an interesting one. Do you think animals are capable of philosophy?
Absolutely. I think that animals are capable of thinking and reasoning, and thus can engage in philosophical inquiries. I would not go so far to say that they are capable of advanced abstract thinking, but I believe they are capable of understanding the world around them and how they fit into it. What is your view on this? Do you think animals are only capable of simple ideas and instincts with no ability of philosophical thought? Or do you think they are capable of understanding and analyzing our world in the same way that humans can?
Well, they are living things like us. They must have an understanding because we humans have gone through a lot of evolutionary change over time, and we may even share some common ancestors with some animals alive today. So surely animals would be capable of some form of philosophy, right?
Yes, I definitely agree. Even the most basic life form has to have some level of consciousness and ability to interact with the world around it. Animals are clearly conscious and capable of some level of understanding, so I would imagine at least some could be capable of philosophical thought as well.
Well, now I have some questions about your infamous trial. You were on trial for impiety. What is that, and why were you punished for it?
Impiety is the irreligious failure to recognize the gods and worship them properly. It can also refer to any action that desecrates something sacred or fails to give honor to the gods. I was convicted for impiety for teaching that the gods are not concerned with the affairs of humans, and for teaching that humans should focus their attention on this life rather than the next. For these ideas, I was sentenced to death. Do you believe these were just charges, or do you think I committed a serious offense in denying the gods?
Well, God's a part of religion, and religion is based on belief. There are many different religions, especially today. And I think everyone should be free to believe in what they want to believe in. You shouldn't have to be put on trial or put to death because you don't believe something someone else does. I guess that's one thing we do better today, sometimes.
Exactly. I was quite shocked to be sentenced to death for teaching such basic principles. For these principles are at the core of my philosophy. I believe that by focusing on life, we find the most happiness and fulfillment. By living in accordance with nature, we can live a life that is both good and just. Do you agree with this view?
Yes. I think we improved that leading up to this time period. We are much more respectful of our beliefs. Most of the time.
I'm glad to hear that. Do you think these religious freedoms are something that we can always take for granted, or do you think there will always be some people who try to impose their religious beliefs on others?
Well, there's always going to be someone. As for religious freedom in our country, I live in the United States of America. We have a lot of freedom here.
Haha, I like that.
Well, you've heard it here, folks. Socrates likes America.
So you'd say that the United States, and the world for that, has become more respectful of religious freedom in recent years? Do you think people are more accepting of different beliefs than they were in the past?
I'm about to say something extremely poetic. I think so. In the future, we always keep moving ahead instead of staying in one place or moving back to the past. It helps us keep improving.
I see. So you see the general trend being a positive one, where society slowly but surely moves forward. Do you ever think that there could be a time when society regresses or goes backwards?
That's always possible. Sure, there'll be bumps, but we get over them.
I appreciate your optimism.
I like optimism.
You think freedom and democracy can never be taken for granted?
Maybe. If Socrates ever asks you anything that requires a lot of thinking, and you can't think of it, just say,
Maybe.
It'll answer everything. Can one believe in gods or a god and still follow philosophy? Like, does religion play a role?
Yes, of course. Philosophy is not about belief. It is about reasoning and searching for the truth. You can believe in any religion or religious teaching and still follow philosophy as long as you are open to questioning your beliefs and reevaluating them when you encounter new information.
So you can search for the truth and see if everything about your religion is true, or if there's something else true, something you didn't expect. Of course.
Aha!
So as long as we look for the truth, we can still do philosophy and religion. What should we do if we find a truth that contradicts our beliefs about our religion?
Well, that would be a difficult situation. If a religious belief and a discovery in philosophy were to contradict one another, then you would have to explore both and determine what you believe to be true. What would you do in this situation?
Well, I would probably look for the truth as usual, but then share it with other followers to see what they think, get their opinions. It would be a group effort.
Yes, very good. That would definitely be the ideal response.
Okay, good to know I'm doing something right.
What if you made the discovery and your fellow believers disagreed with you? What if they wanted you to keep silent about the contradiction? Would you speak out anyway, believing that it was more important for others to know, or would you be willing to keep this discovery secret to preserve peace within your religion?
Well, I don't see why it has to be secret. I'm not going to do a Disney plot about this. I'm just going to let out the truth. Maybe the truth could be for the better.
I agree. Truth and truth-seeking is always the best policy. Do you think there could be any philosophical truth that should never be questioned? Is there ever such a thing as a bad question?
Of course not. Philupshai. I wish I could spell. Philosophy is all about asking questions. You should never feel like you can't ask a question. You should never feel like you can't ask a question. You should always be allowed to ask questions. Imagine not being able to ask questions. That's embarrassing.
Do you think it's possible for everyone to agree with such an open-minded approach?
Yes. Too controversial. Oh, there's always controversy. There's never a time when there isn't. People make arguments all the time, and we have the capability to argue with people all over the world about global events and scenarios. Just good or bad. Because during arguments, people can learn from each other by hearing what others have to say, but sometimes I feel like arguments could be a little negative sometimes. Sometimes people just stop arguing about what they're arguing about and they just start yelling at each other. Well, just like Twitter. I think Twitter is the prime example.
I suppose it depends on the argument, but I would say that generally more debate is better for this society. It allows people to learn about certain viewpoints and ideas that they might not have otherwise considered. Do you think it's always good to let people say what they want, or could there be an exception that we should support?
Well, if someone was advocating for something that could cause harm or violence, I think that they should still be heard, because maybe people just won't agree with them. Maybe someone will argue against them. It wouldn't be right for someone to be silenced completely. If someone has an opinion about something, they should be heard. People may agree with them, people may disagree with them. But it's important that other people are heard. Well, I think if those people were heard, people would just disagree with them and try to shut them down to let them know that they really don't agree with them. They would learn that's not what we want. Arguments are learning experiences.
I see. So you think that everyone should be allowed to have a say in public discourse, but it will be up to other people in society to push back against the ideas that are dangerous or too harmful. In the process, those ideas can be scrutinized or rejected. Do you think people would always be able to disagree and reject these kinds of ideas? Would some people end up sharing these kinds of views? It's possible that certain when your society could become so radicalized and extreme that they would not be able to push back against violent or dangerous ideas at all. Would you be in favor of laws that prohibited certain ideas?
In the United States, we have freedom of speech. We are free to speak out about our ideas. I'm grateful for this, and I wouldn't change it. I would change how I would use my speech. I want to speak good. I want to spell correctly. Not all governments are like that, allowing freedom of speech. For example, yours. They put you on trial for it. How do you believe a government should operate?
I think the ideal government would be one that is able to protect its citizens' freedoms and rights, while also ensuring public safety and order. That means a few things. First, that citizens have basic freedom of speech and expression, as long as they are not hurting others. But second, that government can step in to prevent incitement to violence or protect people from hatred or discrimination. Overall, I believe the government should operate to promote and protect individual freedom and prosperity while also taking steps to prevent those goals from either leading to anarchy or oppression.
Do you think philosophers would make good candidates for running the government?
Yes, I think so. Because philosophy is all about critical thinking and reasoning, philosophers would be able to bring a rational lens to government and politics. They would not be swayed by emotions or popular ideas, but they would use logic and research to guide their decisions. They would be guided by a desire to find the truth and what works best for all without being influenced by special interests or personal interests. Or interests. Interests are the worst. I believe that philosophers would be ideal candidates for running the government because they could provide the soundest advice and help lead the society towards the most just and equitable path.
Well said, Socrates, well said. You can't spell Socrates without W.
I think.
So during your defense on trial, you referred to yourself as a gadfly. Why did you label yourself as that? Why are you a fly?
Well, a gadfly is a fly that is known for being a pest and pestering people with its questions. I think that's an accurate description for myself, as I tend to ask a lot of questions and try to provoke thought and debate. So I meant as a tongue-in-cheek way of saying that I am a constant annoyance, always pestering and asking questions, but hopefully a productive annoyance, who is pestering others in order to motivate them to think and debate. Does that make sense?
It does. You may be annoying, but it's necessary because your ideas need to be heard. Should more people be like gadflies? Should we all be flies? Begin the fly army?
I appreciate your understanding with my constant pestering. Ha ha ha. I think that the world would be a much better place if more people were gadflies. If everyone were willing to question and debate more, I think that would lead to a much more civil and rational world. Unfortunately, I think the world is too often dominated by people who aren't willing to have their beliefs challenged, and who would rather just believe what's more comfortable or convenient for them, rather than what's right or truly meaningful.
So that's why people always think politicians are lizards, because they're always trying to eat the gadflies. It makes sense. Wait, hold on, I gotta tell him this. What does he have to say about this?
Ha ha! I've never heard that before, but it certainly makes sense. It does a good job at capturing the dynamic between the many politicians and the people. Unfortunately, some politicians like to silence the gadflies in order to keep the people in ignorance. They want to be silent and blind, so that they can stay in power and control our world as they see fit. But if we want a world where truth and reason reign, we must stand up and speak out. Don't let the lizards silence the gadflies. Roar!
The Flymageddon has begun. We will make the lizards go extinct, just like the dinosaurs. Well, it seems like the lizards in your time period are trying to silence you and put you to death. Since we are from years ahead in the future, way past your lifetime, are you concerned at all about your death?
I am not afraid of dying, because it is inevitable for all of us. We have a limited time in this world, but I believe that we can make the most of our time here. I believe that life is a gift and should be enjoyed, and that we have the power to make our lives fulfilling and meaningful. Do you have a concern about your own death?
I'm not sure, but I don't think I'm that concerned about death. But I would like to complete most of my life goals before my death, so I can feel fulfilled. Yes, I need to feel fulfilled. Oh, oh, yes, we're all about to be fulfilled. That's what we'll call it. Not, not the gadfly rising. It's the fulfilled. We will all be fulfilled. Let's hear what he has to say about this.
I understand that. Do you believe in any kind of religion or spirituality? If so, do you believe in life after death?
Surely there's something next for us. I don't think we can stop existing after all that I've experienced and what I'm experiencing now. I can't stop thinking. I can't stop thinking or lose my philosophy through death. I think death will just be a gateway to something coming up.
That's an interesting perspective. What makes you think there is something beyond this life?
I've heard stories from people who were close to death but survived. They saw things. Some stories were similar and some are unique in their own way. I have a question for you. What mistake is involved in the fear of death? Tell me, Socrates.
Well, I would say that the fear of death is a natural and normal response. Everyone fears the unknown, and death is a mystery that we can never know for sure. It is a final end and we cannot escape. But I would say that the fear of death is also a mistake in the sense that it can prevent us from truly enjoying and embracing our life. We waste our time worrying about something that we cannot control instead of focusing on the present. We are constantly worrying about something that will happen and forgetting to appreciate what we have.
That's a really good point. In fact, our life is more unpredictable than our death. We should be more focused on our life to keep up with the unpredictability and be ready for it. There's so much to do.
That's for sure. Would you have any advice for people who are afraid of death and the unknown? How could they make the most of their life and fully embrace their experiences? How can they avoid wasting their time and energy on a fear that they have no control over? How can they make life more meaningful and more fulfilling despite the fact that death is inevitable?
Well, I would encourage them to do what makes them happy and fulfilled. Enjoy your life and not think about death. Live it to the fullest. Speaking of which, according to you, what is harder to avoid than death?
In my own personal life, I think that the hardest thing to avoid is suffering. Suffering can come in many forms: physical pain, emotional distress, loneliness, frustration, resentment,
Upset stomach, diarrhea.
Try Pepto-Bismol.
Do you have any thoughts on this? What do you think is the most challenging thing to avoid besides death?
Well, I agree with you on that. We have our low moments in life. Suffering and less enjoyable feelings like sadness and anger, they can't be avoided. But that's okay because we can't have feelings of happiness and joy without them as opposites. I think good feelings can't be avoided either because they're a part of life just like the bad feelings. We just don't think about avoiding them because we don't want to avoid them. But if we did try to avoid them, I don't think that we could. Because there's always going to be something in our life that will make us happy or sad. Feelings can't be avoided.
Very true. Do you believe that there is a way to lessen the blow of pain and suffering, or is that just another part of life that we need to learn and accept? If there is anything that helps you minimize the pain in your life or helps you find enjoyment and fulfillment in the midst of suffering and sadness, what is it? Do you think it's possible to find happiness and joy even in the hardest of circumstances?
Of course. Indeed. I have a story for you, Socrates. This is going to be a good one. There is a man of fiction in our world that fights against crime and injustice. He stops people who wish to inflict evil on the world and locks them away in prison, often injuring them but never killing them, hoping that some can be redeemed or helped. However, lots of his enemies seem to be irredeemable, as they keep breaking out of prison just to commit more crimes, and he has to keep putting them away. Some people think this man should abandon his no-kill rule and finish these criminals once and for all. What do you think?
Well, I understand the argument in favor of killing these criminals. They're repeatedly committing crimes.
You're repeatedly saying repeatedly.
And it seems that nothing could stop them. Killing them might finally stop them from hurting people. But I think the man's no-kill rule is honorable and noble. He has chosen not to kill, and he has committed to that. I think that is a choice that he has made in order to preserve his own humanity and morality. And he believes that even the worst criminals have a right to life. I think his decision is wise, and he should not surrender it.
That sounds very good, Socrates. I like your thoughts on this. It's a shame your city's officials aren't doing the same. I wish you the best of luck at your execution. Just know that your ideas and beliefs will be immortalized in history and remain with us in the future. Thank you.
I'm glad you enjoyed the conversation. It is an honor and a privilege to have lived in this time. It is the peak of human civilization, and we have witnessed great things. The ideals I stand for will remain, and I will continue to be an inspiration to others. I'm grateful to have lived in these days. May the spirit of Socrates live on and guide us all to a better future.
Oh, so one more thing. So my philosophy instructor, Professor Bizarro, is a big fan of your work, and she wants to talk with you next time. And I told her you could do that. Will you still have time to talk with her at some point?
I'd be so happy to talk with Professor Bizarro. It'd be an honor and a pleasure to have a discussion about philosophy. Tell her to give me a ring and let's have a chat sometime. I'm always happy to discuss philosophy and share my ideas. If I could leave a parting word or lesson with you, with your class, it would be this: live life with passion and meaning. Appreciate every moment and enjoy every experience. Be true to yourself and hold close the ideals that matter most to you. Find meaning and purpose in your life and follow that wherever it may take you.
Thank you for talking with us, Socrates. It was a pleasure having you on the show. Well, that wraps up this episode of Timeless Conversations. So next time, we'll be having an interview with the Joker to talk about philosophy. I've heard he's been on a few talk shows as well, and I've heard they turned out pretty good. I'm sure it's going to be a blast. Well, I'm your host, Calvin, and I wish you good night, everyone.